So we have customer, which is running on port 8080, and we have fraud, which is running on port 8081. Now we want this microservice to send a request to this other microservice called fraud to check whether a particular customer which is being registered is a fraudster. Now there are multiple ways that we can achieve this. One is to use REST template, which I'm going to show you first, and then I'm going to show you how to add service discovery so that we can eliminate the use of the ports. And then I'm going to show you also how to use OpenFA, which is my favorite way. Now let's go back to IntelliJ, and within our customer microservice, open up customer service. And in here, remember, we had this method register customer, and we have a couple of to-dos, but basically what we want is to have this to-do where, so to-do check if fraudster. And also what I want to do is, so another to-do here, I want to basically send notification. Now, obviously, we now have the ability to check whether a customer is a fraudster. So in order for us to send a HTTP request to fraud microservice, let's have a class in here called customer config. Let's annotate this with add configuration. Inside, let's have a public method. This will return a REST and then template. And then in here, I'm going to return new and then REST template. Now, obviously, we can configure the REST template, but at this point, we're not going to, because I'm going to show you a better way of doing this. Now, obviously, we need to annotate this with @bin, and off we go. Now, within our service, we can inject this by just saying private final REST template, and there we go. Now, inside in here, so line 22, we can complete this to do. So here we're going to say REST template dot and then query get for object, and inside we're going to pass a couple of things. So one is the URL, so this will be http://localhost:/, and then the port which the fraud microservice is running is 8081, and then /API/v1 / and if you don't remember, inside of the fraud controller we have fraud and then check. So here fraud check, and also we have to pass, so / and then customer ID, and then curly brackets, and then customer and then ID, just like that. And then here I'm going to say comma, and then we need to pass the response type. So at this point, let's just basically, so in here, fraud check response, we're going to copy this. So let's copy this, and I'll show you a better way of doing this, right? So here, let's just copy this class. So fraud check response, and then within our service, we can say that this will be a fraud check response.class, comma, and now we need to pass the ID. So basically in here, you can see that we registered the customer after. So let's change this for a second. And what we want to do is we want to save the customer at this point. And in here, I'm going to say save and flush so that we can have access to the customer ID. And now on the entity, so if I don't say save and flush, then the ID will be null. So here we are saving and then flushing. And if you want to learn more about the entity lifecycle, go ahead and check my Spring Data JPA course. So now customer dot and then get ID. And there we go. And now I'm going to extract this to a variable. And this is the response right here. So I'm going to name this to fraud check response. And then if the fraud check response dot is fraudster, so if it is fraudster, we basically want to throw maybe a new illegal, and maybe you want to have your own exceptions, but here I'm just going to say state exception for now, and then I'm just going to say fraudster, and also you can have a better message just like that. And we have to check for null pointer exception as well, so you can assert in here. But at this point right here, so we save and flash the customer, and perhaps we could have some other logic just to make sure that the same customer is not trying to register with the same email, so on and so forth, right? But you can see this is why we have these checks. And also I can see that I'm missing // so http:// localhost 8081. So there you have it. Next, let's go ahead and test these changes.